Okay, so now we are starting with a new chapter, which is chapter 3, the classification of the plant kingdom. In this chapter, we are totally going to study different type of plants, in what different phylum or in what different kingdom or in what different categories basically they are placed, and what should be the characteristics of those plants to be in that specific phylum or to be in that specific class. That is what we are going to study in this chapter. Before starting with the individual phylums, there has been some of the history given to you, that how and on the basis of what method of classification this entire classification is given. So let us see first that thing. First of all, if we see the meaning of science. Now you all must be knowing about it. Science is basically the systemic knowledge of each and everything. That is, whatever you are seeing around you, each and everything, to know that thing in a systemic way, whether it is living or non-living, that is what we call as science. So in that science, particularly if you want to study a subject which is dealing with living organism, then that subject is called as biology. So basically biology is the subject which deals with the study of living organisms. This subject is further divided into two types. That is botany, which deals with the study of plants, as you are knowing, and the other is zoology, the one which is dealing with the study of animals. So that is all about in this chapter, as we are going to study the plant kingdom. So what we are going to study is the botany section. So in this, by studying botany, we can get to know various characteristics of the plant. Particularly, they are dealing with the internal and external characters. To study plant, mainly internal as well as external characters are to be studied, and that is done on the basis of evolutionary aspects as well as phylochemical aspects are taken into consideration, and by that you can study various internal and external characters of plants. Even if you want to study the function and characteristics of it. So in order to study function and characteristics of plant, various aspects are taken into consideration, which is nutrition, adaptation, cellular structure, life habits basically, function and classification. So on the basis of this many aspects and many more, you can easily come to know the functions and the characteristics of various plants. If you have seen, if you want to study any type of plant, basically we should know that which was the first organism to be established. The first formed organism is called as protista or protist. This protist divided the entire form into two types, which is immobile plants and mobile animals. So the first formed life is called as protist, which divided the further lives into two types. All the immovable organisms are said to be plants, and all the movable organisms are said to be animals. As simple as that. As we know that initially the maximum portion of the earth was there in the aquatic life, that is, water was covering the entire earth. So slowly plants have been migrated from water to land. This migration was possible by the series of events what we call as plant succession. So by the plant succession, these plants have been migrated from, it took centuries for that, but they have migrated from water to land. Even by the evolutionary development, the simple and lower organisms have transferred to higher and more complex forms. So basically, this is the entire introduction for the plant kingdom. Now to explain different type of plants in the particular category, there has to be some classification system. The acceptable one, or I can say the one which is explained in your textbook, is that of Eichler. So this is the Eichler method of classification. You can see the kingdom plant is divided into two subkingdoms, which is cryptogames and phanerogames. This classification was given on the basis of flowering and non-flowering plant. Cryptogames are basically non-flowering and or I can say seedless plant. On the contrary, phanerogames are flower-bearing and seed-bearing plants, and they are also said to be spermatophyta. Further, cryptogames are divided into three divisions, which is Thallophyta, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta, as you can see on the screen. Thallophyta division is further divided into four phylums: Schizophyta, which includes the bacteria; Algae, which includes Spirogyra and Sargassum; Fungi, which includes yeast and mucor, which is the bread mold; and Lichen, which includes Parmelia and Usnea. Bryophytes are having the example of Riccia, and Pteridophytes are having main example of Nephrolepis. So this is non-flowering and seedless plant. On the contrary, there is phanerogame, which is flower-bearing and seed-bearing plant. That is further divided into the division Gymnosperm and Angiosperm. Gymnosperms are the one which are not covered by ovary, and Angiosperms are the one which are covered by the ovary. Gymnosperms contain the example of Pinus, Cycas and Araucaria, and Angiosperms are further divided into two classes. If their seeds are having two cotyledons in them, then it is a dicot. If it is having one cotyledon in them, then it is monocot. Dicot is sunflower and monocot is maize. Typical example. So this was the Eichler system of classification, and on the basis of this, in your textbook, particularly the plants has been described. Further, if we say except Thallophyta, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta and the entire phanerogames, they all are further included in the class called Embryophyta. It includes Bryophyta plus Pteridophyta plus entire phanerogames. That is Embryophyta. Embryophyta are the one which bears embryo in their structure by the method of reproduction. So this is the entire, the introduction of the chapter. Now, if we see further, or if we further start with the, again, now various systems of classification had been proposed. So let us see the next topic, which is Five Kingdom classification. Now, as we have seen, one of the methods proposed for plant classification was by Eichler, which is said to be Eichler system of classification. Except that various scientists were there from the time of BC, backward class. From that time, various scientists and naturalists has tried and proposed new and new methods of classification. Let us see some of them. The first was given by a Greek naturalist called Theophrastus. He classified plants into 4 groups, and these groups were based on the habits of the plant. So depending on the habits of the plant, he classified the entire plant kingdom into 4 groups. Theophrastus is known as father of botany, particularly from 370 to 285 BC was his contribution. If we see the next scientist, then it is Swedish naturalist belonging to Sweden, and that is called Linnaeus, as we have seen, Carolus Linnaeus. What he did is, he classified the entire plant kingdom into 24 groups, and these 24 groups were based on sexual characters. So depending on the sexual character, he classified plants into 24 groups. This Carolus Linnaeus is said to be father of taxonomy from 1707 to 1778. Finally came the one which has given a bit acceptable model of classification, which is R.H. Whitaker. In the year 1969, he proposed a model called 5 Kingdom Classification Method. So 5 Kingdom Classification Method was given by R.H. Whitaker in 1969. It was usually based on 4 aspects. Let us see those aspects. The first aspect for 5 Kingdom Classification was based on the cell structure. That is, whether the organism is prokaryotic or eukaryotic. The second aspect was body structure. That is, whether the organism is unicellular or it is multicellular. The third aspect was on the basis of modes of nutrition. That is, whether the organism is autotrophic, the one which take nutrition by photosynthesis, or it is heterotrophic, which take nutrition by absorption and ingestion. So that was one of the aspects. And the last aspect is major ecological role. That is, whether they are producers or they are consumers or they are decomposers. So these were the 4 aspects on the basis of what R.H. Whitaker has given 5 Kingdom Classification Method. So as from the name, as we know, there should be the 5 kingdoms. So the 5 kingdoms in this process were, in sequence you have to remember. The first is Protista. So 5 kingdoms are, as from the name we know, there are 5 kingdoms. So we have to place, let us see which 5 kingdoms are. It has to be remembered in sequence. The first is Monera. The second is Protista. Third is Fungi. Fourth is Plantae. And the fifth is Animalia. So these are the 5 kingdoms given by Whitaker: Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. Let us see each of them in detail. The first kingdom in the 5 kingdom classification is Kingdom Monera. Now this Kingdom Monera is basically the kingdom of prokaryotes, or as I can say, all the prokaryotes are majorly included in the kingdom of Monera. Let us see what are the characteristics of Monera. The first characteristic of Monera is that it does not have membrane bound organelles in the cell, that is basically mitochondria, then Golgi bodies, endoplasmic reticulum. Those type of membrane bound organelles are absent in them, and they even don't have well-developed nucleus in them, but they do have nucleoid. But well-developed nucleus, as is there in the organism, that is absent in case of Monera. The next, if we talk about the cell wall, then the cell wall of Monera is very rigid in structure. It is made up of a genetic material which is nucleoprotein, which is a combination of nucleic acid and protein. So the genetic material of Moneras, which is all the prokaryotes, is made up of nucleoprotein. Then if we talk about mode of nutrition, then mode of nutrition is either autotrophic, that is, there are certain Monera which prepare their own food by photosynthesis, and rest are heterotrophic. That is, there are certain which do not prepare their own food and depend on others for their food. So this is the characteristics of Monera. If we want to see the examples of it, then Monera include the example of bacteria, blue-green algae, which is also said to be cyanobacteria, and one of the cyanobacteria is Eng.Med, the one which you see over here. This is the type of cyanobacteria. So this is all about the kingdom Monera. Now the next kingdom is kingdom Protista. Now this is the kingdom of unicellular protozoans and primary aquatic eukaryotes. That is, all the eukaryotes are not included in this, only the one which has primary and aquatic ones, only they are included, and rest organisms of the Protista would be unicellular protozoans. Let us see the characteristic of Protista. Protista is exactly opposite to that of Monera. In the first line we had seen in Monera that they do not have membrane bound organelles or nucleus in them. The exact opposite will be in Protista, that they do have membrane bound organelles and well developed nucleus in them, that is present. If we discuss about their mode of nutrition, then same, they can also have autotrophic mode of nutrition. 2, they can even have heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So any one is possible. It can be autotrophic or it can be heterotrophic. If we see the examples of the organism included in Protista, then they are Euglena, dinoflagellates, amoeba and paramecium. So these are the organisms which are included in the next kingdom, which is Protista. Now the third kingdom is kingdom fungi. Now this is the kingdom of all multicellular decomposers. So the kingdom, next is the kingdom fungi, which includes all the multicellular decomposers. Now let us see the characteristics of them. In this case, either unicellular or multicellular eukaryotes are included. Any type of eukaryote, either it can be unicellular or multicellular, but the condition is that they should be decomposers. They cannot be producers, they cannot be consumers. Decomposers are the one which depend on the dead decaying material for their nutrition. So that is the condition. They can be unicellular eukaryote, they can be multicellular eukaryote, but they has to be decomposer. Next, if we talk about their mode of nutrition, then it can be either parasitic, the one which depend on others for nutrition, or it can be saprophytic, that is the one which depend on the dead decaying material. If we see to the composition of cell wall, then the cell wall of fungi is made up of a particular special type of material which is called as fungus cellulose, or the other word is chitin or chitin, whatever you want to pronounce it. Okay, so the cell wall will be of that matter. Embryo, as a result of the sexual reproduction, embryo is not formed. That is, their reproduction is limited to zygote formation only. They won't further lead to the formation of embryo. So these are the characteristics of the organisms which are included in the kingdom fungi. Let us see the examples of them. It is slime mold, yeast, which is unicellular, but as it is decomposer, it is included. Then mucor, which is a bread mold, and mushroom. These are the examples of the kingdom fungi. Now the next kingdom is kingdom plantae. Now this is the kingdom of multicellular producers. Again, in kingdom plantae, any type of usually the organisms are multicellular, aquatic or terrestrial producers. That is, they can have any type of habitat, they can have any type of cellular structure, but the condition is that they should be producer. That is, they have to produce their own food and supply it to the animal. So that is for the plantae. The other characteristic is cell wall. Over here, the cell wall is simply made up of the component called cellulose. It can have primary and secondary deposition on them depending on the type of plant. Then if we talk about mode of nutrition, then as they are producer, they have to produce their own food. So accordingly, the type of nutrition would be autotrophic. That is the one which prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis. If we talk about their reproduction, then at the end of sexual reproduction, embryo is formed. Except in algae. Algae do not form embryo, except in that all the organisms are producing embryo at the end of sexual reproduction. Finally, the examples of this kingdom, it includes pteridophyte, bryophytes, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. So these are the examples of the kingdom plantae. And next and the last kingdom for 5 kingdom classification is kingdom Animalia. This is the kingdom which includes all the multicellular consumers. So whatever the organisms are, they can be aquatic, they can be terrestrial, they can be anything, but they has to consume. Either they can take in the food by absorption or by ingestion. So the first is, they are multicellular, aquatic or terrestrial, heterotrophic. That is, they are having mode of nutrition which is heterotrophic eukaryotes. Cell wall in this case is absent only. Animals do not have cell wall in them. They directly have plasma membrane only. The animals have usually different type of structure in them, which is in case of form, shape, and reproduction. There is form, shape and reproduction are of different type, and in that manner they are showing difference in them. At the end of sexual reproduction, they do produce embryo. And usually they are reproducing by sexual methods only. If you want to see the examples of this, then the examples are all the phylums starting from coelentrates. It can be coelentrates, platyhelminthes, nematihelminthes, arthropods, up to chordates. Basically, all the organisms will be included in this phylum, in this kingdom, that is of Animalia. So basically, on the basis of this, yes, one thing I just forgot to tell you for the plants. In case of Plantae kingdom, the plant body has a particular structure. If they are the primary plant, then it will be only the simple structure without any root, stem and leaf. That plant body is said to be thelloid. But if it is a complex plant, then the body, simple thelloid body, will be differentiated into root, stem and leaf. That is one point that I left. So this is all about 5 kingdom classification, and on the basis of this character, all the plants will be classified into 5 kingdoms according to R.H. Whittaker.